We have started we have started transport layer yesterday. We have seen similarities of data link layer and transport layer. Also, we have seen that how the scope of them is different, and difference is in the degree of storage rather than the type. Then we have also seen that error control is provided at the data link layer as well as at the transport layer. It is not just duplication of the task, but we do that so that it will be reliable through transport layer and it will be efficient through data link layer. Did you understand this yesterday properly? That it is for optimization at the data link layer while it is mandatory at the transport layer. Have you understood the statement? Okay. And we have seen reasoning of them, that what happens if we provide only at the transport layer and what happens if we provide only at the data link layer. We have discussed about that in detail. Then addressing is provided at the network layer and also at the transport layer. Flow control is also provided. But at the network layer, we have IP address. At the transport layer, we have port address. How long is the port address? Can anyone tell me? What is length of the port address? Yes, that is 16 bits. And what about IP address? How long is the IP address? And our MAC address? Can anyone please write one example of a valid IP address? Yes, Keval, that is correct. Priyank, Kaushal, Dev, Prince, Chintan, they are correct. And what Keval, Kaushal, Dev and Prince have written, those are special type of IP addresses. Which are those? Yes, loopback IP addresses. Those are of the local host, or they are also known as loopback IP address of the same host. Like I can say that I enjoy this day. Like I use I for Bhavika Gamba. Similarly, when Prince is talking about himself, he'll say that I. So this 127.0.0.1, that is the I for that. That is local address. Can you please write one valid port address? Will you be writing a valid port address, please? Yes, 8080. We should. That is true. That is a valid port address. 8800. Yes. What is the highest port address? What can be the largest port address? I meant by that. Not 9999. No. We don't have port address like F. F does not come in the port address. No. Dev is correct. It is 65535. Vishruth, I wouldn't calculate that. You will be calculating this and telling me that. Okay. So that is what we have done yesterday. And then we have seen that how segment will be given to the network layer, packet header will be inserted, which will be passed on to the data link layer, while frame header and trailer will be there. Then we have seen UDP header, fields of that, and we have discussed about applications of UDP. Then we have talked about pseudo header. Pseudo header is used to calculate the checksum and verify the checksum. It doesn't travel on the network, and it provides one extra layer of security and identification at the destination address. It provides robustness, like by chance if network layer somehow failed to detect the correct destination, Then at the transport layer, we hope to catch that. So that is what we have done in the last class. We'll continue now with, let us talk about quickly, let us talk a bit quickly about port address, and then we will start TCP. They are at the transport layer. They are 16 bits long, and they are used with TCP and UDP both. Doesn't matter whichever protocol we use, always port address would be used or port number will be used. Okay, before I continue with this, I would like you to tell me the applications of UDP. Can you please recall applications of UDP? Yes, video conferencing. So live multimedia transfer, that is true. That is one application. Then broadcasting and multicasting, that is true. And yes, so DNS comes in a generic category of small client server queries. Like whenever there is just one segment worth question and one segment worth reply, then UDP can be used. And classic example of that is DNS. We don't need to have burden of establishing connection, sending the acknowledgements and closing the connection. Simply send the query, you may get the reply. So DNS uses UDP. Now we already know this, right? Port number is used to identify processes or services on your computer. Then actually there are two type of port addresses. If you loosely categorize them, there are two type of port addresses. Well-known port addresses, and the second one is ephemeral port addresses. So when I say well-known port addresses, those port addresses are of the server. Server uses well-known port addresses. Like let us say when we say police, then what is the phone number for police in our country? If I have to call police, that is 100, right? It doesn't happen that if we are in Nadia, then it is 10,000. If it is in Ahmedabad, then it is 7340. Or if it is in some other state and other district, it will be something else. It is same throughout the country. Why so? Because we are supposed to use that service frequently in an emergency. So at that point of time, we wouldn't like to waste our time to first find out based on the location, or let us say that what is the phone number where our police is providing the service, and then we call that. We don't want that. So it is well known that it is 100. If you're talking about ambulance, that is 108, like, or 101. Is 101 fire, or what is 101? Maybe fire. We don't know. Okay. Okay, 102 is for ambulance. Oh, okay. So 102, or in our state 108. Yes, 108 is the service which is provided by our state. Initially, that ambulance was started before 10 or 15 years. But across the country, 108 might not be recognized across all the states. Like that was special service. I forgot the name initially. That was a term coined for that. Like before 10, 15 years. Anyway, so moral of the story is the services which we are going to use frequently, those are better kept at the well-known port addresses and the shorter port addresses, something like that. Just a second. Hello. Okay. So if we are talking about HTTP, then HTTP functions at 80. If we are talking about, let us say, SSH, you might have heard this term SSH, right? Then that is at 22. DNS is deployed at another well-known port addresses. So the range from 0 to 1024 are reserved. These are also known as reserved port addresses or well-known port addresses. So they are not to be used by the users. They are supposed to be fixed for specific services. An ephemeral port address is 1025 onwards. Like if you make your own server, like if you are providing a service where if someone pings to your server, you will be giving their marks. Okay, sessional marks you are giving, that service you are providing. Then even though yours is a server, that is not a well-known service or not globally accepted one. So you are not going to deploy that on 0 to 1024. Any port address starting from this you can use. You can say that I'm using that on 10,000. And all the DDU students will be knowing that it is on 10,000. And then they can use this service. So ephemeral port addresses or random port addresses starting from 1025 inwards to 65535. That number will be having. So whichever is the free, that will be assigned whenever we close the client, that will again go into the common pool. So that is something about port address. And then I think we are ready to begin with the TCP. So let us start TCP. Do you happen to remember or do you happen to know full form of TCP? What does TCP stand for? Yes, there is transmission control protocol. Many people say there is transport control protocol. That is why I actually have asked that. Please remember that. That is okay. That is a very generic and common mistake, because it is at the transport layer and somehow our mind also functions like that. So TCP is a transmission control protocol. Now first I'll give you some of the characteristics of TCP which you may remember or associate TCP with, and then we will discuss one by one. So is it a connectionless or connection oriented protocol? Yes, it is a connection oriented protocol. What about UDP? It is connectionless protocol. What about IP? Internet protocol. At the network layer we have IP. Is that connection oriented protocol or connectionless protocol? Yes, that is also connectionless. Is IP reliable or unreliable? IP is unreliable. What about UDP? Is UDP unreliable or reliable? UDP is also unreliable. And what about TCP? Is it reliable or unreliable? It is reliable. So it so just happens that IP and UDP are connectionless and they are unreliable. TCP is connection oriented and it is reliable. So many people think that connection orientation has to do with reliability, which is not, which we have discussed in the very first class. We can have wired or wireless, reliable or unreliable, connectionless or connection oriented protocol. So you may devise your protocol which is connectionless and still it can be reliable, as long as it is having the sequence number, acknowledgement, retransmission support. It will be a reliable protocol. Do you remember that discussion? All the possible combinations do exist in the world. We have protocols which are wireless, which are connectionless, and still it can be reliable. We have protocols which are connection oriented and still they can be unreliable. The protocols which you are learning here, majorly IP and TCP, one is connectionless and unreliable, another is connection oriented and reliable. When I say reliable, what do I mean by that? It provides error control. We can say it is reliable. That means it provides error control or data integrity. Whatever data we are sending, the same data will be correctly received by the receiver without alteration, duplication, loss. It does flow control as well. What is flow control? Do we remember that? Flow control makes sure that your receiver is never overwhelmed. Your transmitter will be sending data according to receiver's capacity. That is what we ensure in the flow control. TCP provides services for the congestion control as well. Like if there is traffic on the network, if there is congestion on the network, and if something happens, like some packets are to be dropped, then what corrective measures are to be taken, that will be taken care under the congestion control. We will discuss about that. You have actually learned congestion control at the network layer as well. You have learned some of the algorithms of congestion control at the network layer also, but that is pretty different. While here in congestion control, we are talking about actually receiver's capacity as well as indirectly network capacity. Do not worry if you don't understand this statement at the moment. Then, of course, as we said that it is providing a reliable service, it is having sequence number. In TCP, sequence number is 32 bits long. And not only that, initial sequence number will be random. Initial sequence number is random in TCP. So far we are used to protocols where the initial sequence number is going to be 0 and then we begin in sequence. TCP is a byte stream protocol. Of course, acknowledgements are used, checksum is used, and there are 4 timers associated with TCP. You are already aware of one timer. One is retransmission timer. Other 3 timers we will see afterwards. Then, of course, TCP provides end-to-end reliability, being a transport layer protocol. End-to-end connection it provides, and because it is TCP, it provides reliable service. So I can say that it provides end-to-end delivery because we are using port addresses. So I think we are good to begin with this background about TCP. Do you know some applications of TCP? Which application layer protocols use TCP? Just 1 or 2 of them. HTTP, okay. Then another one. FTP, yes, FTP. Can we use UDP for FTP? No, because see, when we say FTP, that means the file which you are sending has to be received correctly and exactly the way which is available at the transmitter. So in UDP, if some of the segments are corrupted, then UDP is never going to retransmit that and file will not be intact. So here sequencing is important and reliability is important. So TCP will be used here. Okay, so now where shall we begin from? I think we can go. Connection is established by 3-way handshaking in TCP. Let us begin with 3-way handshaking. I think you have already heard this term 3-way handshaking. Many of you heard this term or learned this term 3-way handshaking? In which subject? Yes, in processor, you might have heard that. Or in some peripheral devices, you might have heard that. So first, in TCP, it does connection establishment. When we say it is providing you connection oriented protocol. Whenever we say it is a connection oriented protocol, then the first part is to establish connection. And if I have to be precise, then I'll say that to establish connection, three-way handshaking is required actually. Three-way handshaking is required at the stage of connection establishment. TCP is a connection oriented protocol. Now we are talking about that how connection is established in TCP. The first phase, how connection is established in TCP. Three-way handshaking is done. So initially, whichever party wants to establish connection. Now, please remember that we are not going to use term client and server anymore, or transmitter and receiver. We are not going to use those terms because any of them can be transmitter and any of them can be receiver. And we know that actually most of the time in the real-time applications, they are going to be trans receivers. So, if host 1 wants to send data to host 2, it will be sending CR, which is connect request. And some random sequence number is used initially. We will soon see that why random sequence number and why not 0. Currently just accept that connection request will be sent. Host 2, if it wants to entertain this connection, then it will be sending acknowledgement and it will be sending the sequence number. Like it also wants to establish connection. I just forgot here. Here, I have mentioned it, but I just didn't note it down. Bidirectional, TCP is a bidirectional protocol. That means both the parties can send data to each other. So, host 2 also wants to send data, so it will be sending sequence number. It will be again a random sequence number, something like Y, and acknowledgement of X. Now, when this is received here, you may not write here acknowledgement. Okay, this is misleading, the first one, but it is given in the textbook like this, so I have maintained it. And now, in the third segment, it can send acknowledgement of this connect request from the other party. It will be sending acknowledgement of that. So I can say actually something like this. If I have to make it simple for you, not very precise but simple, then one will be sending the connect request. The other fellow will be sending connect request plus acknowledgement to this, and acknowledgement will be issued in response to this. Once you do this much, then we say that connection has been established and we can start sending data. But in the recent implementations, like when it is sending the acknowledgement, at that time you had requested for the connection, other party has accepted and requested for the connection. So while you are acknowledging, you can also send data along with this. You don't need to send the third segment alone as an acknowledgement, but data can be combined. That is why here data is written, so that it will be slightly more efficient. So data will be written, and then onwards always data and acknowledgement will be together as long as you have data. It is something called piggybacking, which we have learned at the data link layer. So in the connect request, some parameters also will be negotiated. Like here we say that I'll be requiring this much amount of window. Do you have that? Then this will agree to that if it is having the buffer. Otherwise it will say that no, this is the memory which I have. Then according to that you can send the data. We said that it does flow control. So in TCP, flow control is explicit. Receiver will tell you that what buffer size is available there. And according to that, transmitter has to send data. If receiver says that 10,000 bytes are available, then transmitter shouldn't send more than 10,000 bytes. If receiver says that 1,000 bytes are available, then transmitter has to send 1000 bytes. Similarly, this is sending, then it is also saying that at what speed should I send? Then this will also be informing that, okay, this is the buffer size which I have. So both the parties are not just sending, simple, I want to establish connection, but along with that, some other parameters also will be negotiated. Are you with me so far? . Another term is MSS, that is maximum segment size. That will also be decided during the connection establishment phase. Maximum segment size means each segment which is generated by the TCP will not exceed this size. That is MSS, which will be decided. You might have learnt another term, MTU. Have you come across MTU? What does MTU stand for? Can anyone tell me? Yes, it is maximum transfer unit. So will MTU and MSS be same or different? They may not necessarily need to be same. MTU is the term which we used based on the hardware capacity. Like we say that in Ethernet, your MTU will be maximum 1500 bytes. Then most of the time, it is wise that TCP also generates maximum segment size according to 1500 so that framing will be avoided. However, TCP may generate, 3000 bytes in one MSS. Then at the data link layer, each time we will have to divide into frames. So if MTU and MSS are same, then at the data link layer, framing can be avoided. But if MSS is larger than MTU, then you may need to split that and framing will be attempted. And if MSS is smaller than MTU, then can you tell me what will happen? Nothing, right? Then the same segment will be converted into a frame, like first packet and then frame, because MSS capacity is lesser than MSS size is lesser than MTU. Then as it is, you can just insert the packet header at the network layer, frame header and frame tailor at the data link layer, and that would be your frame. So what will be the maximum segment size? That also will be decided during establishment of connection. So now I have a question. Transport layer, transmitter and receiver, they decide that what will be MSS. The other party has rights to reject that as well. Like they can say that no, I'll not be supporting this much MSS. Then you will have to propose the lower MSS. And there are some, other algorithms as well, like path discovery algorithm, that it is actually, wise to have whatever is the MTU's capacity. Based on that, if MSS is decided, then our time will be saved. There will be no parting of the data and reassembly of that. So path discovery algorithm might run in the beginning, and then based on that, MSS can also be decided. But however, theoretically, we can say that MSS is decided by the transport layer, transmitter and receiver together. Okay, so now the question which I want to ask you is three-way handshaking required? Like I explained that we are sending connect request, other parties sending us connect request and acknowledgement, and then we are sending acknowledgement. When we do this much, then we say that connection has been established. Instead of that, I have an idea. I say that whenever one say connect request, then other party sends the acknowledgement. Of course, if it agrees. If it doesn't agree, then no acknowledgement will be sent. If you don't get an acknowledgement, then just assume that the other party is not willing, or let us say it will be sending something like negative acknowledgement or reject request. That reject. No, I don't want to establish connection. So if it sends acknowledgement, connection is established. If it doesn't send acknowledgement, then connection has been rejected. Cannot we work like this? Why do we need to go for three-way handshaking? Like there is nothing like two-way handshaking, but something like this. Can it be done? Or do you see any problem with this? Are you getting the question which I'm asking? Okay, fine. How receiver decides for what acknowledgement is received. Okay, channel, let us use term host 1 and host 2. host 1 has sent connect request. Host 1 has not sent anything so far. So host 2 is sending the acknowledgement of this. So whenever host 1 is getting the acknowledgement, because it has sent the connect request only, if it is receiving acknowledgement of that, then we know that host 2 has agreed. Is that what you were asking or something else? Did I understand that properly? Coach Channel, you may please unmute yourself and tell me what you want to say.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So, ma'am, I was telling that how host 1 decides that for what it is getting the acknowledgement back. So, for that.
So, what has host 1 sent so far? It has sent just the connect request.
Yes, ma'am.
And here we are having X. Let us say we are using the sequence number. So, sequence number, I'm saying that 8011. That is the sequence number. So, if I'm getting acknowledgement of 8011, then I know that, okay, this is an acknowledgement in response to connect request.
Yes, ma'am. This is correct.
But still, think over that channel. It is not the smartest idea just to have this too. Can you tell me why? Or anyone else? Partly I have indirectly answered that already in the discussion. Okay. So what we said, the TCP is providing bidirectional communication. So when you are sending connect request, then your parameter will be proposed and you are acknowledged. But the other party also needs to send something. So it also has to offer the parameters, like this will be my MSS. Do you agree with that? And what will be the buffer size which you will be telling me? Then if this party is not sending the acknowledgement, then what is the buffer size to be used, etc. might not be there. That is one reason, because both the parties are going to send data to each other at one or the other point of time. We have to send the connect request from this side also, because not only this part is going to send the data, this is also going to send the data. And apart from that, have you heard of something called DOS, denial of service attack? So what do we do in DOS? That so many dummy requests will be generated in short duration of time. That server will be busy with those request, and it will be not be able to entertain the genuine request if someone is coming with that. So if we are going for just two-way handshaking, then what someone will have to do, like if there is a malicious person, he'll have to just write the program that send connect request 10,000 times. So our server is getting 10,000 times. The poor fellow is sending 10,000 acknowledgement and 10,000 connections are reserved. Now, when I say 10,000 connections are reserved, then with each connection buffer is spared. I hope you realize that it does not come free of cost. Like buffer will be spared for each connection, because when the other party sends you the segment, we will have to first store the segment and then we will be able to perform the checksum verification. If it is correct, you will send that. You will also remember that, okay, here is 8011, then the another sequence number is this. So for each connection, you will have to maintain the parameters. So if you are just saying that connection will be established by these two, then it will be very easy for someone to send 10,000 or let us say 1 lakh connection request, and you will be sending the acknowledgement and the server might be choked. But while we are going for this, what are we saying? That if someone says that 8011, then we say that, okay, then I also have connection request, establish my connection, that is a bit too long, and take this acknowledgement for you. So usually, what happens, that if this party has to send acknowledgement to this, then it will have to cater to the request which is sent by this party, and it will have to be present. Most of the time, these are lazy people and they don't have high amount of resources. So here what happens, that host 2 is asking to reserve the resources. So it will have to send the acknowledgement of 7234. That means it will have to process that, fulfill all the requirement and send the acknowledgement of that. So if it is asking for 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 lakh connections, it will also have to spare resources for 1 lakh connections, which in most of the cases, he will not be having that. So denial of service attack will be much difficult if we are going for three-way handshaking rather than two-way handshaking. Because in two-way handshaking, what all the bad person has to do is to send that I want to establish connection. That's it. While here we are also holding him responsible that okay, you want to establish connection, fine, take the acknowledgement, but I also want to establish connection and these are the resources which I am demanding. So unless he is sparing the resources and giving you proper acknowledgement, that means it will have to read this, process this, send you the acknowledgement, then only connection is established. So here denial of service attack also will be much difficult if you are going for three-way handshaking. Are we all on the same page? So, these are just minute details of TCP that it has been done with so much thoughts in the mind. And why are we doing this? Because again, I repeat, it is at the transport layer, which is second last layer from the application layer. And TCP is a reliable protocol. So once TCP accepts data, then obviously it is going to go to the application layer. And once I say application layer, that means with the user. So whatever utmost care we have to take or we can take, that has to be done at the transport layer. That is why TCP is much appreciated, slightly sophisticated and complicated. It is not complicated, but it is much sophisticated. If you just think of one feature of that, so much thoughts has gone into that. Like yesterday we have discussed about pseudo header. So there is very less possibility that IP address will change of the destination and checksum will also change in accordance. Both of them might change, but then what are the chances that will match? Probably, 1 in millions, but still we have taken care of that. If that happened, then pseudo header will be saving us from that. Similarly here, we don't want someone irresponsible to burden our system. We are also asking him to spare the resources and then only connection will be established. Anyway, so that is three-way handshaking for connection establishment. Then data will be transferred. You send the data, you get the acknowledgement. Then once the entire process is done, then we can go for connection release. Connection can be released then. Now, let me talk about connection release first. And then I'll talk about why initial sequence number is random. And before that, there is something interesting given in the book, which even if I don't mention that, you will understand it. But because it is interesting, let us talk about that. So there is something called two-army problem. Like there are two mountains where there are two members of Blue Army, and here also there are two members of Blue Army. And in the valley, there are three members of White Army. So if one team of Blue Army attacks them, and we are assuming that strength and the capability of each person is same. So when these two people, Blue Army 1, attacks here, then White Army will win. If this attacks here, then White Army will win. But if Blue Army somehow they can, communicate, they can synchronize, and both of them attack at the same time, then they will win. So that is the problem definition. So now how do we ask them to communicate? Okay. So let us say Blue Army 1 sends a message. They send a message that can we attack tomorrow at 1? It is sending that. Or let us make it an affirmative statement. Let's attack tomorrow at 1 p.m. Do you think attack will take place tomorrow at 1 p.m.? Blue Army sent a message to Blue Army 2 that let us attack tomorrow at 1. Do you think they will go? And here I said that they'll lose. That means the death penalty, something like that. That they'll lose means not just $100 they are going to lose. Either they'll be dead or they'll win, something like that, if it is as crucial as that. So blue army is sending a message that let us attack the white army tomorrow at 1 p.m. So do you think this will go and this will also come? Yes or no? Vishruth, wouldn't this blue army think that what if I have sent the message but blue army too have not received the message, they are not going to turn up, and if they are not going to turn up, then we both of us will be dead. So we should not go until we get an acknowledgement from blue army too. Yes, Kaushal, something like that will happen actually. Because they'll be very scared that it is a matter of death and life, that what if my message was not delivered here, then they are not going to come tomorrow, and we don't want to risk that. So what they will say, that please send the acknowledgement. So now blue army 2, we are expecting an acknowledgement of that. In the acknowledgement it will say that yes, let's do it. Do you think they'll go now tomorrow? Kaushal, what do you say? And others, of course, anyone. Will they go tomorrow now? Probably not, because now blue army 2 is in dilemma, that I said that yes, let us go, but what if that acknowledgement was not received by blue army 1? So if the acknowledgement was not received by blue army 1, they are going to think that we are not going to go, and hence they wouldn't come, and if we go alone, then we'll die. So they will say that you send us one acknowledgement that you have received the acknowledgement, and then we'll come. Do you think if we have this mechanism, then will it work? Which message should we send to white army? Asha, you are saying that the message which was passing from blue army 1 to 2, that what if that is received by the white army? Are you saying, Janan, something like that? So here let us say we are having some pigeon. The pigeon cannot be caught by this, and he flies over here, and then the message is delivered, something like that. But sometimes pigeon might swallow the cheat. I know that is a very bad example, but will it work? No, Kaushal, and that will, yes, Priyank, exactly. That is an infinite process, and there is no end to this. Because even if we are saying that this is sending that let us attack, this will say that okay, then this will think that what if my okay was not received, so you send us the okay. Now if blue army 1 is saying that this is the acknowledgement, then this will think that what if my acknowledgement was not received, other party will think that whether we have got their acknowledgement, and hence they will not come, and so on. So there is no end to this. If we keep acknowledging acknowledgements forever, then yes, there may be some central officer, but we are talking this in the perspective of transport layer. In transport layer is active only at the transmitter and receiver. So blue army is something like transport layer. So there is no central or there is no mediator. There are just two parties who are talking to each other. So while releasing the connection, we may have something like this, like when to actually release the connection. Both of them cannot release connection at the same moment, because both of them are never going to be sure that the other party is also going to release the connection at the same time. But fortunately, while releasing the connection, it is not a matter of death and life. It is just matter of releasing some resources. And when I say some resources, port address and the sequence number data and the buffers. And that may also happen that because it is bidirectional communication, host 1 wants to send data to host 2, but host 2 doesn't want to send data to host 1. In one direction also, connection can be closed. So this entire, the story was done just to make you realize that it might not be possible to close the connection simultaneously. We will have to close connection at the different moment. but that is okay with us. So now, whenever we want to release the connection, then host 1 wants to release the connection, it will send disconnect request and it will start the timer. If host 2 also wants to release the connection at the same moment, then right at that point of time, around that point of time, then it will send the disconnect request and timer of course will be started. When disconnection request is received here, then this fellow can immediately release the connection because you have sent disconnect request, other parties also send you disconnect request, it can be sent. An acknowledgement can be sent that yes, I have received it. Once this acknowledgement received here, this can also release the connection. So releasing of connection is not simultaneously, that might not be possible. But even if it is done sequentially, we are good with that. We don't mind it. Now what if something like this happens? You have sent the disconnect request, other party also wants to disconnect it, it has sent the disconnect request. So you have released the connection because we have sent it, we have received their consent. Now we are sending the acknowledgement. If this acknowledgement is lost, then we had started a timer. When the timer goes off, then we are going to release the connection. We are just studying various situations that how connection will be released. This may also happen that you had sent the disconnect request, other party has sent the disconnect request but itself was lost. Then what will happen? After sending disconnect request, we had started the timer. And by the timer went off, here we have received it, so we have released the connection. But here it is lost. So there will be a timeout. So again we are going to send the disconnect request. This fellow hopefully will get it this time, it will send it. This is also received here. Then connection will be released here. Once you send acknowledgement, then at this point of time, this will release the connection. And if you are assuming that there is something so severe with the channel, that continuously there are so many episodes of lost connections, like you are sending the disconnect request, that is lost. There was a timeout, again we are sending the disconnect request but it is also lost. Many times that happens. Then what will happen? It is recommended that wait for n timeouts. For n number of times disconnect request will be sent. If it is received and if it is acknowledged, well and good, we can release it. Otherwise, after trying for n timeouts, connection can be released. So it will not happen that forever we are stuck in having some resources. We don't have to reserve the resources forever. In all the situation, in the normal situation, very quickly connection will be released. Even if acknowledgement is lost, then after timeout, connection is going to be released. Even if one side or two side they are there, then after a while, we are going to release the connection. So fortunately, because we don't have to do that simultaneously, and it might not actually be possible to close the connection simultaneously, that is why also we have adopted this policy. Are we good with connection release? Everyone? So we have talked about connection establishment, which is a three-way handshaking. It is done to prevent denial of service attack, as well as TCP is a bidirectional protocol. Then data will be sent and it will be acknowledged, and then connection will be released like this. So now let us talk about why sequence number, initial sequence number is random, and then we will close this. Okay. We said that sequence number is 32 bits long. Please pay attention here, it is pretty interesting. Okay. So initial random sequence number. Why have we chosen that? So let us say that here you are who, let us say Bhavin. Bhavin is there. So Bhavin wants to pay fee to our university for the semester. I think you are paying fees to HDFC. Am I correct? Coincidentally, we are getting our salary from HDFC also. Of course, not the everything what you are paying, just chunk of that. So Bhavin wants to pay fees of the college. So what Bhavin is doing, he is logging in. So we know that TCP will be used here. So if you are assuming that sequence number is 0, that login, then what will HDFC say? Username. This will also be having sequence number 0 because it is also first segment from this side, from HDFC side, and it will send acknowledgement of this 0, that yes, take this acknowledgement. And what is your username? Or let me do it like this. It is send this, then HDFC will be sending this, right? So what will Bhavin do now? He'll enter the username, whatever that is, Bhavin123. So now sequence number is 1. And what should I write in the acknowledgement number? Can you tell me? Yes, 0. See, please remember that here I am saying that each segment is having sequence number, while actually in TCP sequence number is given to each byte. So that I'll discuss in the next class. Currently we are assuming for the simplicity that sequence number will be sequentially like 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. So HDFC will verify and it will be saying that yes, yes. So what is your password? So sequence number will be 1 and acknowledgement of this 1 it will be sending. What is the password? So Bhavin, what is the password? Let us say Bhavin has kept a very simple password. A123 ABC. He is entering that. So it will say, of course, here everywhere, with each segment, we are going to have sequence number and accordingly the acknowledgement number. Then HDFC will ask you that what do you want to do? It will show the menu that what do you want to do? Which transaction do you want to carry out? And what will be the numbers here? Can you tell me? What will be the sequence number? Yes, 22. Right, fine. Nice that you are with me. So it will be 22. And so now you are going to say that pay 78,500 rupees to the university. You are saying that then if your account has that amount, then it will transfer the money, and I don't know why it will say you that congratulations, the transfer is done. Right? And this time your sequence number will be 3 and acknowledgement will be 3. So now you are logging out. That okay, log out, it is done. So sequence number will be 4 and acknowledgement will be 3, something like that. So that is what we have done. We have transferred your 1 semester fee to the university's account. Now imagine, we have talked about that a network can lose data, it can duplicate data, it can corrupt data, your data can reach out of sequence. All these are real possibilities at the transport layer. When I say your network can duplicate data, what is meaning of that? It is not going to write that one segment 2 times. It is something like that the original packet was sent, but it has taken probably slightly longer path. And because it has taken the longer path at the transmitter, there was a timeout. So transmitter is again going to send the same one. So now in the network, there are 2 segments. So one is the original segment and one is the duplicate segment, something like that. So by chance, if the longer path is taken, or if one router is somehow not very efficient and it is storing data for the longer duration in the queue, at that time, also there might be retransmissions from the transmitter. That is how your network may have multiple copies of the same segment. Do you agree with me? Of course, we have sequence number and everything, but your network can duplicate data. That is what I mean by that. So now assume that all the segments which were generated by Bhavin's side, they are duplicated. Not only that, all of them are duplicated and they are duplicated in sequence. Of course, there is a very rare possibility, but still, let us go with the flow. That this is generated, it is given to the HDFC that I want to log in. Then it will ask, what is your username? And while it was expecting the username, at the same time, the duplicate, this one is coming, which says Bhavin123. Then it is asking, what is the password? Then the duplicated one appears right at this moment. Then it will ask that, what do you want to do? You will say that you want to transfer this fee to the university. And if you are rich enough, you will have another semester's fee also available in the account. It will say that it is done, congratulations. And you will, and logout doesn't matter whether now logout duplicate is reaching there or not. The money has been transferred twice. Now we are nice people, we'll refund you. But certainly we don't want something like this to happen. So instead of starting with 0 sequence number, if we were starting for the initial random sequence number, and what is the range? Anything from 0 to 6, 5, 5, 3, 5, like 2 raised to 16 minus 1, anything from this. So here we said that 1, 2, 0 was the sequence number chosen by Bhavin, and from this side the sequence number was 8, something like this. Then here acknowledgement will be of 120. Here this will be 121, and you are going to give acknowledgement of 8767. This will be the sequence number 8768, and the acknowledgement will be, can you tell me what would be the acknowledgement here? $121, yes. So here the sequence number will be 122, here sequence number will be 123, here sequence number will be 124, acknowledgement number will be 8768, here sequence number will be next one 8769. So I hope you get probably by now what I want to say. Anyway, I'll complete this of course, but you might have got the idea of why this is a much smarter solution and it will work. So now, if we are using initial random sequence number, then something like this will happen. That is chosen 120, so we are giving acknowledgement to that, and some sequence number is chosen. So now the next sequence number, acknowledgement of this, then password is asked, and so on. So by chance, if we are saying that all of these are duplicated, now all of these are duplicated. So now after a while, this is what HDFC is getting, your bank is getting. So what it will say, when it is receiving that, it will say that okay, Bhavin might want to again do some transaction. So it will not deny that you have already logged in before 10 minutes, I'll not allow you. It is not going to happen. But this time, it will choose any random sequence number from 0 to 2 raised to 16 minus 1. So what are the odds that the same would be chosen? Almost nil. So this time, let us say it is choosing the sequence number 777. An acknowledgement of 120 will be generated. Now, the data, all the segments are duplicated. So this segment is duplicated. 121 in acknowledgement of this. So what will they say? That wait, we are having sequence number 777 and I want corresponding acknowledgement, not something like this. So here connection will not be established. And we are saved from transferring some amount to another person. This was not possible if we are using always sequence number 0, because this fellow was expecting 0 and you are giving that. While in this scenario, because each time random sequence number is sent, then unless it is given, you are not going to establish the connection. So actually, this is not going to happen, that login and username and all this. This will happen after TCP connection is established. So TCP connection itself is not going to establish unless the proper acknowledgement is given. So what I want to say here is that if there are some duplicate old connect request in the network, and if they appear after a while in sequence, but still it will not be able to reserve your resources. There are no chances that wrong connection will be established because we are using random sequence number each time. Initial sequence number is not each time. Initial sequence number is random, and then we are going to use in the sequence. Are you with me on this? Okay, and of course, you might have argued that we have OTP here and all that. Of course, those are all the provisions. So at the application layer and transport layer, we are going to provide as much sophistication in the prevention and security mechanisms as we can. But this will also help you to prevent from DOS attack, as we already mentioned earlier, because someone will not have to just send you this, but it will have to also, generate the proper acknowledgement. So their job is not just over by sending you the login request. They have to reserve it and send you another one. Then only their job will be over. If it was just 0, then they might have just sent acknowledgement of 0 without processing that, but it would not be possible here. So that's it for today. Thank you.